America is an amazing country filled with wonderful people who do incredible things. But too often, the media and liberal politicians ignore big parts of our nation and the people who make it work. So I'm speaking with leaders and policymakers who deal with real problems every day. I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is Real America. Today, I'm going to be speaking with former Navy SEAL Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas. We're going to cover everything from the Biden administration's mishandling of the crisis at the border and COVID-19 to the growing threat of big tech censorship. So welcome, Congressman Crenshaw, to my podcast. I don't know if you remember when we first met, but I do.
I think it was in Austin.
We were in Austin.
Yeah, I remember.
That's great.
Yeah.
You were just running for Congress, and I met you at a fundraising event that we had in Austin, where I was born, in Austin, Texas. So, and then you've just been this rock star congressman. So I'm really excited to have you on my podcast. Welcome. And you have your own podcast, right?
Yep. It's called Hold These Truths.
It's Hold These
Truths. It's the new thing, man.
Any tips for me? Because I'm kind of new to the podcast world.
You've got the setup.
I've got the setup, right?
Well,
what are the pro tips of the podcast?
Geez, we've been figuring this out for a while, and you've got all the equipment stuff. That's the hardest thing to do is the production. The next hardest thing is keeping it interesting with guests. So I always do it with guests. It seems like the way you do it.
I do too.
And so I'm always looking for somebody with something interesting to say. And you're obviously failing at that because I don't have many things interesting to say.
I think you're so interesting. I'm actually really excited to talk to you because there are so many things to discuss. But I do want to make sure our viewers and our listeners get to know you a little bit better.
The beauty of podcasts is that you can have these long form discussions and actually make a point that's a little longer than 240 characters.
Than a 22-minute soundbite on a TV show where you really don't get to know somebody. So were you born in Texas? Is that where you grew up?
No, well, I definitely grew up there.
Actually, you were all over the place.
Texans, yeah.
Because your dad was oil and gas, right?
Yeah, I was in oil and gas
you
in
grew up
Houston,
all over the world, Colombia.
All over the place. Yeah, I was actually born in Scotland.
You were born in Scotland?
Yeah. I was
Do you remember living in all these different places?
No, I have no memories of Scotland or Egypt.
Okay.
My first memories are in Houston. So we moved to Houston when I was pretty young. And my entire life was moving from overseas back to Houston. Houston's always our home base. My dad's side of the family's been in Texas for 6 generations. And my mom and dad.
What perspective did that give you going overseas and then coming back to America and seeing different countries?
Well, my high school experience is probably the most interesting experience because it was all 4 years in Bogota, Colombia. And geez, what perspective? I mean, it makes you appreciate what we have here.
Yeah.
There's so many other countries around the world that are constantly on the edge of complete destruction. And I know we act like we're on that edge all the time, but we're very far from it. In the grand scheme of human history and world politics, we're a very, very stable country. Our politics is certainly vitriolic and overwrought and full of exaggerations. But in reality, we should be grateful that America is still the greatest place on earth to be. And you certainly understand that if you've grown up abroad like I have. Helps you understand other cultures, helps you understand other people. I mean, I've about just over 100 people in my class, none of which were American. At least all 4 years.
In high school,
in high
4
school,
years.
Yeah. A couple of Americans came in and out, but it was also dangerous back then. It was 1998 to 2002. There was bombs going off, war going on.
That's kind of crazy.
It was our car got shot through once, so then we had to exchange it for an armored vehicle.
Were you in the car when it got shot through? Okay, thank goodness.
My stepmom was, yeah. It was.
That's really scary. My sister-in-law's from Bogota, Colombia, too. So one day I'll have to connect you guys.
You got to go. I don't know if you've ever been.
She loves it.
It's still a cool place to visit.
She talks about how beautiful it is all the time. So you graduate high school, and then how do you end up joining the Navy?
So I always wanted to be a SEAL.
Okay.
Since I was a kid, really. I'm not sure what age I was, maybe 12 when I read Dick Marcinko's Rogue Warrior.
Okay.
God bless him. He just passed. He was the founder of SEAL Team 6, just a real burly guy, wrote a bunch of books in the, 80s and 90s. And a lot of current SEALs read those books. It's what got us into the SEAL teams. It's hard to make it through BUD/S unless you've always wanted to do that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not something you wake up one day, you're like, I'm pretty good shape. I can just do this. No, you need to believe that this is your destiny.
Okay.
And you need to not give yourself a choice about it. And so, I always wanted to do that. All my actions were geared towards that goal. Went to college. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be an officer in the SEAL teams because I wanted the college degree as well. So I did ROTC.
Okay.
And immediately went to BUD/S right after college.
And then you had 3 deployments. Mm-hmm. And then was it in your 3rd deployment that your life changed forever? So talk about that day and that experience a little bit.
So my first 2 deployments were to Iraq. My 3rd was to Afghanistan, and obviously the most kinetic deployment that we were on. And about 6 months into that deployment, I think we were on a very unique mission, at least for us, because we had operated in the Kandahar province, and we would take helicopters all over the place. We were our partner force was one of the top tier for Afghanistan, and so we would take them all over Kandahar and do operations against Taliban forces throughout. This particular day, we went to Helmand because higher ups wanted to keep a presence there. There's a lot of policy discussions we could go into about how we get things wrong sometimes from a deeper policy perspective, because they wanted us to do things that we really had no business doing, that were an excessive risk to force. That's a deeper policy discussion. It also informs my understanding of policy up here.
That brings that
right, because I can
that
see
experience into
literally how it manifests on the ground. And so we come in. We high five with the Marines who were there because they were out of batteries, they were out of ammo. A couple of them had been shot, and they needed to go. They'd been there for a couple of days, so now it was our turn to just hold the area for a couple of days, and ended up leaving a lot sooner than that. And I left sooner than anybody because a few hours into that op, as we were moving along, one of our interpreters stepped on an IED right in front of me.
Oh no!
And he later died. He lost all 4 limbs right away. It was a particularly large one, and also packed in very, very hard rocky ground, which makes it far more devastating. It was packed with metal. I know that because they extracted bolts and screws out of my hands, and it hit me and blinded me right away. I remember the whole thing.
You do remember it all?
Yeah, I wasn't unconscious, and I got up, walked to the medevac helicopter, and then they put me out for 5 days after that.
My goodness.
So I didn't know I was blind. I didn't. I thought I had dirt in my eyes, to be perfectly honest. And maybe that
thought it would go away.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was just a coping mechanism. I mean, you don't want to believe the worst. And they didn't hurt. So, because my face was numb. Everything else hurt real bad, but my face was numb.
That's crazy.
Didn't hurt. And then I woke up, learned the truth, and I think that's really honestly where the nightmare started, because I couldn't see for a long time. You're blind, you're in pain, you're hallucinating. If you put like a blackout mask on for a couple days, you will sort of start to hallucinate. Like you'll start to your mind will create images of where it thinks your kitchen
thinks you're seeing things.
Yeah, like if you're in a familiar place, especially like your home, you'll start to see your table in front of you, but it's not quite there. It's not quite right. It's really odd, and you can imagine in much more detail than you normally can, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
It becomes an interesting experience. You should try it sometime.
I'm not going to be wearing a blackout, but that's really crazy. But I think the thing I didn't know about you is that you went through that, and then you went back for 2 more tours after you healed. So what was the road back to being deployed again?
Well, it was rocky, so to speak, because I wanted to go back to a platoon, and it was unreasonable at the time. I asked them, what kind of surgery do I need to make me 100% again? As if there's just fixes to this thing, like it's a car that you can just kind of put back together. And the doctors they humored me for a while and eventually just said, no, like we're not. So because fundamentally what's wrong with my good eye is that it doesn't have a lens in it. So I have a permanent cataract.
Okay.
I'm looking at you right now because I have a really big contact in that you can kind of see. It's a very specialized contact. It gives me great vision, but it is a contact. And without it, I can't see anything.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't allow me to see up close either, any glasses to see up close. It's a kind of a single focal contact. And people with cataracts, they usually get lens implants. You see older folks with and they see that kind of shiny object in there. That's what that is.
Okay.
that's easy to do if your eye hasn't been blown up before. So, but mine has, and so it's very hard to do and wouldn't give me perfect vision anyway. And so I was trying to get that done. Within weeks of my injury, and the doctors thankfully just said, "No, you need to. We're absolutely not going to operate on you." Yeah, and so I got used to the contacts. I went back to our shooting courses. Got good shooting left-handed. I'm right-handed, of course, and which is hard to shoot rifle right-handed.
I never even thought about that, so you had to switch.
Yeah, so I shoot rifle left-handed now. I still shoot my pistol with my right hand, and I got good at that. I wanted to go through all the things and get a waiver to operate again, and the Navy was just not having it. If you're in the Army or Marine Corps, you have a little bit better time with injured guys going back. The Navy is much more difficult. It's not used to combat, because it's going through a Navy bureaucracy, so they don't understand the implications, I think. And to be honest, if I'm being honest, knowing what my condition is and kind of taking a step back from it now,
you get it a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. Like I can't see at night the way I used to be able to.
But you did go back.
I did go back, but in an intelligence role. So I found a different route for myself. People don't realize that special operations, almost half of what we do is preparation of the environment, and that's about all I can say about that.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Tell me more. No.
Yeah, there's a lot of intelligence roles that we operate in, and this will probably be more prevalent as we get away from the war on terror as well. And that became sort of my area of expertise for the latter half of my career. I went to Bahrain, Lebanon, Oman, Korea, and was able to keep serving.
I think you're amazing. So thank you for your service. I just think what you've done is amazing. And then you come back, I think it was 2016, you came back and you decide, hey, I'm going to run for Congress.
Yep.
And what caused that to happen? What made you go there?
Yeah, well, as you can see from my life, I'm a bit of a masochist, just looking for punishment in all angles. So I was honestly forced out of the Navy in 2016 because we could not deploy me anymore. We were using loopholes to deploy. Me, right? Because you basically it was deployed administratively, and we just couldn't keep it going. I couldn't have a career that way, so I had to leave. And I was medically retired, and I went to Harvard to do my degree in public policy, and I was not planning on running for Congress. It wasn't even in the cards. Me and my wife maybe talked about elected office one day, but I was looking at behind the scenes policy. That's what I wanted to get into. And then all of a sudden, my hometown congressman announces retirement, and I happen to be in a meeting with somebody who points that out and just says, you should do it. And, we know consultants down there you can maybe hire and get it going. And it just happened overnight. I moved into my parents' game room. Which that only lasted for like a month, but
and you have really been one of the most out front congressmen, I think, in our party. You've just been so vocal and so strong on so many issues. I'm going to go through a couple of them real quick. One, your Texas 2nd District. You are on the front lines of seeing what's happening in your state with the border. What is going on with Joe Biden and this administration that they are not addressing the huge crisis at the border? Not just the influx of people coming in, but the other factors that are part of it, which are the huge opioid problem that we're having with drugs coming across the border. What do you think? Why don't they listen to you? I know you've been very vocal on this huge issue.
Because it's deliberate.
Yes.
I think that's the short answer. This isn't incompetence. It's a deliberate act on our country. This is why I call for the impeachment of Mayorkas. So let's start there.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, because they're deliberately breaking the law. I don't, and I'm not somebody to throw things out lightly.
No, you don't. You are not that person.
It's easy to throw out red meat and just get people riled up. That's not me. I'm very deliberate in how I look at these things, and I think the first step is impeachment of Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, because he has direct oversight of this problem. But Biden's, of course, at fault too. We should go there next, I think. And why do I say this is impeachable? It's because you're deliberately refusing to execute the laws of the land. Okay, and that's very specific in the Constitution. It says this: it's the executive branch to execute the laws.
Exactly.
That's the point, and you're deliberately not doing that. And of course, it's intentional. Why would they even do this intentionally? I think they believe that they will derive political benefit from this in the long run.
I believe that too.
I don't think that's true.
I also agree.
So that's the good news. But it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay. And because they are trying to do this, there's more and more cities and localities, left-leaning, of course, that want non-citizens to vote. They're always looking for ways to just like bring these people in because they know how difficult it is there's 1 million people since Biden's presidency started, about 1 million that have probably been let loose into the United States and told, hey, return someday, for your court. And, then we'll adjudicate your case. So the way to solve this is actually really simple. The Trump administration figured it out. It's walls are important, but those are security measures. A very different problem set.
It's the Remain in Mexico policy.
It's the Remain in Mexico policy. It's fundamentally it's adjudication.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to adjudicate the asylum claims or the illegal crossings, whatever the case is. Adjudicate it fast. Get a quick deportation. And move on. People will stop coming if you do that. They're only coming because of the catch and release.
And for people who aren't in Texas and aren't seeing this every day, what is it like for your Border Patrol agents, for people on these border towns? What are they dealing with? Just give us a little bit of a picture of that.
Well, for the Border Patrol agents, it's absolute hell. I mean, so you join the Border Patrol and you think, okay, I'm going to be like in the bushes waiting to see somebody trying to sneak by. And it's kind of fun and exciting. And you're like catching bad guys and catching drug traffickers. This is how somebody thinks about joining the Border Patrol. Instead, what they're doing is they go to a pickup spot and they have to just wait there for the caravans to come. And because people aren't trying to get away.
No.
Going to Border Patrol is part of the process for them because they know that if they do that, well, then they get bus tickets, plane tickets. They actually get to start moving to where they want to be. So you will find cases of people Ubering to a Border Patrol station to turn themselves in because it is indeed part of the process. It's so broken the system is. Like they're not even trying to get away. And so our Border Patrol agents have turned into just processing agents. They're babysitters, they're bus drivers. They're certainly not patrolling the border in any real sense. And this is how all the drugs get through.
Because they're coming in.
Yeah, the drugs aren't coming through these people turning themselves in. They just, that's how the drug
cartels
They're
the distraction.
Yep. And the drug cartels make a ton of money on both cases because they charge a piso, which is like a fee for each person going across. Could be about $300 is about normal. So that turns into hundreds of millions of dollars pretty quickly for the drug cartels, and they have zero risk associated with this. So great deal for them. Look, the Trump administration did a good job working with Mexico. I'm actually traveling to Mexico in March for this exact reason. For like, look, what levers can we pull? Because our administration doesn't seem to want to pull them, but let's at least start that conversation.
I agree with you that it's intentional. I think it's deliberate. That's why the RNC just sued in New York for them allowing 900,000 non-citizens to vote. We're going to see this in more municipalities. I also agree with you that it's not a guarantee that these people coming through are going to be voting Democrat.
Yeah.
You've been on the forefront of some other key issues. COVID-19. You've been very vocal with the Biden administration and their failure on the testing and the concern with vaccine mandates. Where do you stand right now with them and how bad it has been under the Biden administration?
It's been bad because the left in general is obsessed with vaccines and to the detriment of therapeutics.
Correct.
And this is such a strange thing. We have never dealt with any other problem the way, and this is the human race. When I say we, I mean the human race. We've actually had it pretty good in America.
Yeah.
Compared to, look at Australia.
Yeah.
And European countries locking down. They have so many more mandates even than we do in very liberal places. Although DC just put this awful vaccine
DC is
mandate
pretty bad.
on.
Yeah.
But DC for a good year was pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
pretty open. Didn't worry about it. I don't know why this sudden lurch to the extreme, but to the detriment of therapeutics is a really important point because, look, when you get sick, if there's therapies for it, you don't need to worry as much.
Exactly.
Right? We didn't have those therapies really set initially, but this has been a long theme of the left where they try to downplay, or not just downplay, but outright censor anybody who wants to talk about ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. And look, these are safe products. Are they effective? The jury might still be out, but they're certainly safe. And the fact that we can't even have that conversation is nuts. And a vaccine-only approach has been an utter failure, a complete failure. The mandates don't work. There's plenty of studies on this.
Well, especially when you have a vaccine mandate approach, but then you don't have the testing for people to go back to work. So you're either vaccine mandated or you have to have tests to go back to work, and then you can't even get a test.
It's like they dismantled all of the Trump administration's actions.
They really did.
Because the Trump administration had to do a lot with respect to testing and getting therapeutics out. We're having a monoclonal antibodies crisis right now.
Regeneron, remdesivir. I mean, the thing that's so interesting is it's a failure, and the media really hasn't caught on to it yet. But there are people who were laid off from some of these testing companies to the tune of hundreds of workers. And that's why we didn't have the testing we needed going into the holidays. And they're still playing catch up when they were given a really strong infrastructure from the Trump administration. So I'm glad you've been so vocal on that front, because it really is such an overreach by this administration and a failure on the therapeutic front. But I think you hit something else, which is you're not allowed to talk about anything. You're not allowed to say, let's look at the origins. Let's look at Wuhan. Let's make sure we understand what happened. And you're very vocal on big tech censorship, because big tech, if you are not in lockstep with the Democrats, they are going to cancel you, pull you off, deplatform you.
Yep.
What do we do about big tech? People ask me this all the time. What can we do about the bias of big tech?
So a lot of ideas get thrown out. One is break them apart. That's more punitive. It's hard for me to see how that changes censorship at all. It's not as if Google breaks up into 4 different pieces that the new CEOs will just be, freedom
suddenly
loving.
great.
Freedom of speech loving people. I don't know why
for bad
anyone
companies
would believe that. Yeah. The real issue is there's a couple issues I think are worth tackling. One is taking a scalpel to Section 230. One of the bills that I support or we're going to introduce as we're still going through some of the intricacies of getting the legislation right. But on energy and commerce, we have a whole series of bills that tackle this problem. Mine in particular adds an element to Section 230 that says that political speech is indeed protected and that you're not free from liability when it comes to censoring political speech. So it's a very small change because there's talk about abolishing Section 230. If you do that, I think every expert who looks at this thinks you probably end up with a complete censorship because now you've given the social media companies a binary
But you're
choice.
Looking at just nuancing the language. You've
got to change some of the language. And there's other bills, too, that would change other parts
I think
of it.
there's such an appetite for that. But of course, we can't do anything until we win back the House and win back the Senate. And you have been one of the best champions of campaigning for House members. Can we talk about the ad for a minute? People won't. I can't show the ad, but the ad you did. What was it? Mission Impossible, the Texas Reloaded, in 2020, when we picked up 15 House seats. You took the charge in Texas and really highlighted some great members that were running for the House, and you created the best ad. Can you talk about how you came up with it? Maybe give a little preview of the concept of the ad.
Sure.
And I think a lot of those candidates won that were featured in your ad.
Yep. We got a new one coming out here very shortly.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a sequel.
Yep.
Okay.
Texas Reloaded 2. Fewer candidates, but it's primary season, so it's just that. We're excited about it. I'm not sure how the idea came up, to be honest. I think I just wanted a unique ad that was entertaining in nature.
It was so entertaining. I loved it.
And that was also kind of apolitical.
Yeah.
So people could love it without being a Republican or Democrat because it wasn't about being a Republican or Democrat. It was just about showcasing really cool people and in a way that was really compelling with movie quality kind of production. And it obviously did really well. And it was also using a model that has become really prevalent, but nobody's really taken advantage of it, which is fundraising with viral ads that are just on social media. So you're not even putting it on TV because, we got lambasted by a bunch of kind of typical establishment consultants. This is why we don't really hire a lot of consultants. But they were telling us, it was just the biggest waste of money we've ever seen. And it's like, it's a more expensive ad than any other ad, but it also raised 30x for it.
And cost. People watched it. Everybody was watching this.
And that money goes directly into those candidates' campaigns. It's direct money. That's an important note too. Because
it's not going into a consultant.
Right. It doesn't go to anybody.
Doesn't go to
so
a PAC,
important. Doesn't go to anybody. It goes
That's so important. And so what's your plan to go out and help win back the House? Because I know you're out there raising money and helping candidates across the country. How excited are you about the prospect of taking back majority?
It's pretty exciting. pretty exciting. I've never known what the majority's like. I hear it's better.
I think it's much, much better to have the ability to set the agenda. Are you going to be on the trail a ton and doing things?
I think so. Yeah, we're going to make sure. I'm focused on Texas right now for Morgan Luttrell and Wesley Hunt. I want those guys to win. And then we'll look at the generals around the country. We might do an America Reloaded.
We're
going to make it a comedy this time.
I want to be in America Reloaded. Okay. You're just going to have like a little RNC chair cameo.
We could have a cameo.
So one fun fact I found out about you that I didn't realize, but it makes sense now when you say you lived in Colombia for 4 years, but you speak Spanish fluently. Mm-hmm. Do you still speak it really well? I mean, have you kept your skills up on that?
Not really.
Not really?
Really well is, of course, subjective. And compared to, the question is compared to who? I've never been a native speaker by any stretch. But yeah, I certainly still speak.
That's a fun fact.
I can still do interviews.
So we've seen so much growth with Hispanic voters and the Republican Party. Are you seeing that in your state as you're traveling? And what do you think that is that's bringing Latino voters into our party for the first time?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one that we probably need to analyze more.
Yep.
Because there's been a massive swing. I think Hispanic voters are just normal people. I think that's the simple answer. They're just normal people, but for some reason we just label anybody with an Hispanic surname as Hispanic voters, which means they're a block of people, but they're just not, and they never really have been. And I think they're sick of being treated that way, and Republicans don't treat them that way.
Yeah.
Democrats certainly do, and they keep calling them Latinx, which is just annoying.
Ridiculous.
To Hispanics. And in Texas in particular, it's predominantly Hispanic in the southern, around the border counties. And I think that's primarily because of the border. Like their switch to Republican is primarily because of the border issue. And we've got to make sure that what we're doing still speaks to those people. And I think it is. I think we just have to be ourselves and explain who we are better.
And then when we get the reins of power, we need to govern well. So I'm looking forward to being in the majority. I'm so appreciative of you and your hard work and everything you do, your service to our country in the military, but also your service to our country now in Congress. And thank you so much for being part of my podcast.
Thanks, Ronna. It's great
Thanks,
to be with
Dan.
you.
Good to see you.
I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is what Republicans stand for. Join us next time on Real America.